Welcome. Welcome students, alumni, faculty, and staff. Welcome Medford and Somerville friends. Welcome distinguished guests. Tonight, we gather to revere, reflect upon, and reclaim the still prophetic words and witness of Reverend Dr. King, and the civil rights activists, scholars, singers, preachers, and poets who worked alongside him and whose legacies still beckon us respond in this time with our gifts and vision to live for beloved community where the dignity of every human being is at the center of our common life. We begin this celebration by lifting up the students who, through their art and poetry, are doing this very work. The Student Voices Selection Committee invited a creative response to the following question: what does love and creativity look like in the service of action for love and justice? After reviewing all submissions, the committee selected 3 winners whom we honor tonight. I invite 2 of them, Andrew Harris and Ayomide Oloyede, to join me on the stage. And our 3rd winner, Marsha Germain, will be celebrated later in our program. Woo, come on. Andrew's photography enlivens this space with a collection entitled Black Tufts, and these wonderful photos do what he described they would. They, quote, celebrate and uplift our power, beauty, resilience, and ultimately, voices. Thank you, Andrew, for your visual voice tonight, and congratulations. Ayo submitted a spoken poem, I Wish for a Rose Garden, which in his words lifts up the idea of recognizing one's struggle and using it as a mirror for others to reflect and learn to find the beauty in the struggle, regardless of their circumstances. I invite you to share this poem with us now.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing tonight? Good, good, good. Before we get started, I just wanted to do a tradition that I've started to do before every time I do a spoken word. And so I'm just going to ask for a favor, okay? I'm going to say something to you, and then just repeat it back to me, okay? All right, we got it? Awesome, awesome. First, I am a person of value. Yeah. Yeah. I am worthy of love. Yeah, yeah. And last, I'm killing it. Yeah. Awesome, awesome. I usually start my words with this because I feel like so often we forget to say these things to ourselves and we can be so hard on ourselves. And so I just wanted to start with that. So, to introduce this, there will be an excerpt from Tupac's A Rose That Grew from Concrete that inspired this idea for this poem, so I'm going to play it now.
You try to plant something in the concrete, you know what I mean? If it grow, and the rose petal got all kind of scratches and marks, you're not going to say, damn, look at all the scratches and marks on the rose that grew from the concrete. You're going to be like, damn, a rose grew from the concrete? Same thing with me, you know what I mean? I grew out all this instead of saying, damn, you did this, you did this. Just like, damn, it grew out of that. It came out of that. That's what you see, you know what I mean?
For the healthiest plants, roses should receive 6 to 8 hours of sunlight daily. They should be planted in well-drained soil, rich in organic matter, and they really need to be meticulously pruned. So you can imagine people look at me kind of crazy when I tell them that I am a rose that grew from concrete. We celebrate the struggle where people who succeed in conditions conceived to crush get a round of applause and maybe a scholarship of some sort, because there is something so mesmerizing about seeing a beautiful thing flourish where it wasn't supposed to. I'm going to repeat that. There's something so mesmerizing about seeing us flourish where we weren't supposed to. They look in awe at my rose, at its beautiful ruby tones, at the way the sun glistens off the ripples of its petal, the tenacity of its stem, the way its waxed leaves wave in the wind. They look in awe at this rose and they spit the most putrid words. If it can do it, so can anyone. Look at this rose. It made the best out of its situation. Look at this rose. It must have been so hard, backbreaking even, for it to grow, but it did it with hard work. So the rest of you need to just work as hard and stop being lazy. They missed the point. They never stopped to ask, why is a rose growing from concrete? Why didn't someone take this seed and plant it in a garden? How much more beautiful could this rose have been if it had been able to grow in an environment made for it? How many seedlings are out there, wilted, praying for the strength to hold on? They soothe their guilt with success stories, consume memoirs of our pain on their commutes to their jobs. They dedicate time for a paycheck. How rewarding it must be to dedicate time and pay rent. They don't understand that our rose is extraordinary. It grew in a garden of stone, watered by spit as people walked over it. People walked over it. Trampled by people who didn't understand its potential. Trampled by those who didn't understand its potential. Our rose is extraordinary. It defies nature's laws. Its roots jabbed into the soil, grasping onto anything just to stay upright. Our buds scraped against the concrete, desperately trying to get to the surface just so we can get a whiff of this wonderful life everyone is talking about. Our skin grew thicker. Our stalks grew quicker. I often wonder, why don't we make more gardens instead of cracks in the sidewalk? Maybe it's because we're told that something broken should feel more like home. I think that a rose in a garden is what I want. I don't want to be a rose that grew from concrete. I don't want to be a rose that struggled to get out. We celebrate the roses from concrete, but we forget the ones who never made it out. And I'm going to read their eulogy here. Here lies undiscovered potential, choked by the very same expectations he tried to outrun. He made it to the other side and found no grass, no milk, no honey. And so he put his hood on and went back. Long live the roses that died under the concrete when no one else cared. Thank you.
Wow. I'm trying to get myself together. Thank you so much, Io and Andrew, for the work that you do for our community and for Tufts. You make me so proud. Thank you. My name is Katrina Moore. I'm the Senior Director at the Africana Center. In January 2023 alone, there has been an alarming increase in gun violence, criminal incidents, and police brutality. Let us remember the lives lost and the devastated families across the country, including in Colorado Springs, Monterey Park, Half Moon Bay, and Los Angeles, California, Memphis, Tennessee, and Cambridge, Massachusetts. Let's remember them with a moment of silence. Thank you. This is going to be a heavy time, y'all. I would like to welcome you to this year's annual the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. As we grapple with the theme, we don't have much time, raising consciousness and building the future now. Our program is inspired by a series of lectures that Dr. King offered in 1968 that were published as a book entitled The Trumpet of Conscience. And our program is guided by a quote from this book, which reads, "But we don't have much time. The revolutionary spirit is already worldwide. If the anger of the peoples of the world at the injustice of things is to be channeled into a revolution of love and creativity, we must begin work now, urgently, with all people to shape a new world." Dr. King was so prophetic. Let those words sink in for a minute. Tonight, we welcome scholar Dr. Regine Michelle Jean-Charles, author of Martin Luther King and the Trumpet of Conscience Today, our keynote speaker, whose powerful book invites us to critically reflect on Dr. King's legacy and to resurrect his radical calls for transformation and justice for the sake of today's most urgent issues: ending racism, sexual violence, and mass incarceration. I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Jean-Charles this afternoon at the Africana Center. She's powerful, y'all. Following her keynote address, we will engage in facilitated table conversations about what it looks like to personally and communally take action in our lives and on Tufts campus now. And our program is infused with student voices. We've already heard from two of them. They are the voices of our shared future. So y'all, the use of music, spoken word, a thought-provoking speaker, and sharing over food, it's very intentional. This year's program is also timely as we grapple with the senseless violence that continue to plague this country, to remind us of the importance of our work to affect change and our need to find joy in our work to sustain our well-being. I recently read an article written about the work of Chinua Achebe. She says, "We are forever in gratitude for the greatest lessons in our lives. Regardless of any challenges or obstacles, we have the power to cultivate our own joy. And it is this joy that will continue to be one of our greatest forms of resistance." Our hope is that you will leave this celebration with a renewed commitment to continue our quest to redeem the soul of America through our collective work and our determination. So again, I welcome you to this event that means a lot to me. But now I'd like to ask you to join us as we go back to those student voices, and we welcome the amazing a cappella groups, Ladies of Essence and S Factor.
Calm the ocean, my Lord. Oh, said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would, he calm the ocean, my Lord. Oh, said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would, he calm the ocean, my Lord. Oh, said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. I remember that day, I remember it well. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. He saved my soul from a burning hell. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. You know, Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. Jump and follow me, Lord. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. He calmed the ocean. Oh, said he would. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. I remember that time, I remember it well. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. He saved my soul from a burning hell. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. Drop your nets and follow me. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. He calmed the ocean, my Lord. Said he would calm the raging sea. Said he would. Said he
And now, if you're able, we'd like to invite you to join us and stand for the singing of our Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Bring with the harmonies of liberty. Let a rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Oh, 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 oh. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
That song gets me every time. I love that. Thank you so much to S Factor and Ladies of Essence. Can we give them another round of applause? It's now my pleasure to introduce President Anthony Monaco to give us welcoming remarks. President Monaco, we salute you for your longstanding and full support of this signature Tufts tradition, a tradition that gives the Tufts community the opportunity to express ourselves and provide reflection on the life and legacy of the man and the movement that not only changed civil rights laws for all Americans, but set in motion the drive for human rights reform worldwide. I can never repay you for your unwavering support of not just this event, but the Africana community and Tufts at large. Thank you so much, President Monaco.
Well, I wasn't expecting that, Katrina. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Tony Monaco, president of Tufts, and really, it's a pleasure to join you once again for this annual celebration of the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. So before we begin, I have to take a moment and thank all the colleagues who helped organize this event, which includes the University Chaplaincy, the Africana Center, Tisch College for Civic Life, the Provost's Office, the Departments of History and Romance Languages or Studies, and the Fletcher School. And thank you very much to the Ladies of Essence and S Factor for that wonderful performance, and Tufts Dining Catering for this delicious meal that we get to share together. We've hosted this event since 2014, every year that we could in person, and if not, on Zoom. And it does offer that opportunity for us to reflect and to recommit ourselves to Dr. King's vision for a more equitable world. It's also an opportunity to celebrate the generations of men and women who came before and also have followed Dr. King's fight against injustice and inequality, and to acknowledge the work that still needs to be done here at Tufts and certainly in the wider world. I think we can all agree that Dr. King's lessons and call for action are timely now as they've ever been since his tragic death. There's no shortages of causes that call upon the advocacy, support, and resources from racial justice and criminal law reform to women's rights, to environmental justice, disability rights, to religious freedom. The theme of today's event, we don't have much time, raising consciousness and building the future now. It speaks to the urgency of these issues, and it encourages us to take action now. And we're going to talk about that at the tables. Whether on campus or in our communities, we need to do this work towards the pursuit of a more just and equitable world. In that spirit, I encourage all students to participate in this Saturday's MLK Day of Community Action. This annual tradition is a wonderful opportunity to reflect, learn, and make meaningful change here in our local communities. We have an exciting program planned for this evening, and I hope that it will inspire each of us to amplify our own efforts for justice and equality as we work to build a better future. It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Régine Michel Jean-Charles. Dr. Jean-Charles is the Director of Africana Studies, Dean's Professor of Culture and Social Justice, Professor of Africana Studies and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at Northeastern University. A Black feminist literary scholar who works at the intersections of race, gender, and justice, her scholarship and teaching includes work on Black France, African diasporic literatures, Caribbean studies, Haiti, and the Haitian diaspora. Dr. Jean-Charles is the author of 3 books and is a regular contributor to media outlets like the Boston Globe, Ms. Magazine, WGBH, America Magazine, and Cognoscenti. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to Dr. Régine Michel Jean-Charles. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, President Monaco. It's so nice to be here on your last one, but it's nice to know that this will continue for many generations. I want to thank Katrina for welcoming me so wonderfully today over at Capon House in the Africana Studies Center. I am married to a Tufts alum who has many memories of Capon House, so he is also here. Thanks, sweetie, for being here, and my 2 daughters are also here. They are only half of our children. We also have 2 teenagers, but they're teenagers. So I want to thank my dear friend Shahrazad Tillett, who is also a Tufts alum, who is here with her beloved father, Uncle Lenny. Thank you so much for being here also. I want to thank Nora and everyone on the team, Ken Ann, everyone on the team, and I'm sorry if I don't say everyone's name, for bringing me here. It's such a joy to be here on this campus. And I also want to thank, I have some members of my church family that are here. We go to church in Cambridge, which is not too far, so thank you so much for being here. Okay, So, I had planned on giving one talk, but the events this weekend really changed things for me. So I hope that you'll bear with me as I share what I have to say this evening. The title theme for this series, We Don't Have Much Time, Raising Consciousness and Building the Future Now, conveys a sense of urgency that we should all be feeling right now. I say we should all be feeling it right now because this past weekend, the city of Memphis released footage of 29-year-old Tyre Nichols, a Black man who was killed after being beaten by 6 police officers who pummeled him without impunity. The police officers are Black, causing some people to refer to this as an instance of, quote, black on black crime. But that's not what it is. Rather, it's an example of why the militarism that King lambasted, evident today in over-policing, remains a pressing problem in the 21st century. It's an example of why people are calling for us to abolish the police. Militarism is also evident in this country's resistance to gun control. You see, militarism is what happens when people believe that a country should use military methods, forces, ammunition, rifles to gain power and achieve its goals. The culture of gun violence in the United States, oh, I forgot about my slides, I've been so, there we go. I also don't think it should be lost on us that, as is often the case, and I talk about this a lot in my book, so often we mobilize around the death of black men rather than the death of black women who are also being murdered by police. And it was actually brought to our attention that the date of birth of Tyre Nichols was actually the same as Breonna Taylor, who would have turned 29. So militarism is what happens when people believe that a country should use these methods to gain power. The culture of gun violence in the United States has its roots in militarism. Police brutality also has its roots in militarism. Last week, when we saw 2 massacres in California that targeted people of Asian descent, my slides are not in the right order, sorry, that targeted people of Asian descent in the wake of the worst massacre in the history of LA, what we saw was militarism. So we are tired, and we have fatigue, and the frustration is real. We don't have much time because of this fatigue. We don't have much time because in the month of January alone in 2023, so many people have already been killed by the police, including Keenan Anderson, who was tased to death by the police on January 3rd, 2023. His cousin might be familiar to you because that is Patrisse Cullors, one of the minds behind the Black Lives Matter movement. The conceit of my book, The Trumpet of Conscience Today, is that we have diluted the memory of Martin Luther King by distancing his message from contemporary social justice movements, ignoring the many activists who surrounded him, especially the women, and disappearing his radical views. I argue that by turning to the less examined works like the essays I focus on in my book, referred to as King's Call to Peace or Call to Conscience or The Trumpet of Conscience, we can gain a fuller picture of what King stood for, and by looking at social justice movements like Black Lives Matter, like Me Too, and prison abolition, through the lens of intersectionality, we can better understand how contemporary activists extend, expand, and improve upon his vision. And so with this in mind, I share a poem. A Dead Man's Dream by Carl Wendell Hines. Now that he is safely dead, let us praise him. Build monuments to his glory, sing hosannas to his name. Dead men make such convenient heroes. For they cannot rise to challenge the images that we might fashion from their lives. It is easier to build monuments than to build a better world. So now that he is safely dead, we, with eased consciences, will teach our children that he was a great man, knowing that the cause for which he lived is still a cause, and the dream for which he died is still a dream. A dead man's dream. This poem eloquently expresses what happens when King's words and the memory matter more to us than the meanings and the action behind those words. As we are dazzled by the power of King's meticulous prose and the sonorous tenor of his speeches, we fail to dig deeper into the content. Even more, we fail to put those words into action. This somber poem evokes the classic dichotomy between theory and praxis. In theory, we want to honor the man, but in praxis, we only honor the memory. We invest in and venerate a symbol. A dead man's dream is convicting, and at times, even accusatory. How am I, the reader, guilty of the behavior he describes? By beginning with, now that he is safely dead, Himes immediately indicts us, suggesting that we prefer the dead king to a living one. Safely dead. Himes' use of safely dead is an implicit reference to the widespread public reaction to the radical king. These words are true because when Martin Luther King was assassinated on April 4th, 1968, he was not at the height of his popularity. But even today, we teach our children that he was a great man, knowing that the cause for which he died is still a cause. We fail to go beyond representation of King into the substance of his vision, teaching, and philosophy. Now, I have to say that with all honesty and in full transparency, I wrote this book because I do not enjoy these kinds of events. I wrote this book because I was so frustrated by how often we would have usually a breakfast, so yay, at least it's a dinner. We would have Martin Luther King breakfast. And this is on college campuses especially, right? And that's the one time that at the institution where I was, it was the president's office, paid attention to Black people. And so this book actually came from a talk that I gave at one of those breakfasts because I was wrestling with this representation. And I knew that for me as a Black feminist, I couldn't stand up there and talk about Martin Luther King without talking about Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer. For those of us who think about justice and gender in the context of Black freedom movements, King is, without question, a towering figure. But his ubiquity also obscures others, both men and women, who labored alongside him, who enabled his work to happen. So I started this book. I wrote this book because I wanted to challenge what I see as the dominant King narrative. And I wanted to encourage especially a generation of students, people like my children, people like the college students here, people like the high school students I spoke to last week. I wanted to encourage them to go beyond I have a dream. I remember learning that speech growing up as a kid. I remember hearing this speech, and I didn't know any other works by Martin Luther King. We've become so obsessed with the idea of the dream that we've forgotten the actual vision. So this poem is far from hopeful, but I share it with you tonight in hopes that it would inspire the conversations that we are about to have. I also want us to think about how the trumpet of conscience is a call. King says, I find myself obliged by conscience to speak out against the war in Vietnam. I find myself obliged by conscience to not stand up here and not talk about Tyree Nichols. I find myself obliged by conscience to not stand up here and talk about him without also mentioning the fact that Black women are also being killed by police. I find myself obliged by conscience to stand with survivors of sexual violence. I find myself obliged by conscience to weep with the undocumented Haitians who are arriving at the border. I find myself obliged by conscience to walk alongside my students when they feel frustrated by how the university is treating them and encouraging them to remember that our call as scholars is not just to hold the university accountable, but to reimagine the terms of the university. And so I ask you, and I totally, I prepared, I'm not gonna lie, I prepared like 40 minutes. But then I was like, oh, I only have 20 minutes. And so I ask you tonight to think about what is it that you are obliged by your conscience to do when it comes to racial justice, when it comes to heterosexism, when it comes to heteropatriarchy. I also want to encourage us tonight because I started out, how much time do I have? 5 minutes? 5, okay. I also want to encourage us because I had started out planning to read a more difficult passage from the book in which I talk about being part in this sick society. And this was a book that I wrote during COVID. And so that was very real to me, this idea of King himself says, we live in a sick society. And we still live in a sick society. And the pandemic magnified the extent to which we live in a sick society. But I also wanted to bring a word of encouragement, because I am by nature an encourager. And that word of encouragement begins with quotations by 2 Black feminists I greatly admire. One is Dr. Farah Jasmine Griffin, who is a literary scholar and professor at Columbia University. And she says this, discussing the legacy of Black feminism. She says, Black feminism has never only been about Black women. It's never been this. It's been about a more just world. And a planet that said, if you listen to the insights of the least of these, which is us, that we could do something transformative, end quote. This is a quotation that I put on all of my syllabi because I want students to understand that we can do something transformative. And so as you think about that call to conscience, I want you to feel empowered to believe that you can do something transformative. Just like my friend Scheherazade, who when she was a junior at Tufts, put together a story of a rape survivor, telling her sister's story as a rape survivor through photography. And from that exhibition that was just in a room on campus, then created an organization and a movement using the arts to end violence against women and girls. She started that when she was a student here. And lastly, the last words that I will leave you with are by another Black feminist scholar who Precious knows, Dr. Kevin Quashie, who wrote a book called Black Aliveness. And this is, again, a word of encouragement. Because I always tell my students as a Black feminist, we live in the both and, right? The both and is the ethic according to which we live. So we're not here to say either, or we're not saying, oh, either we venerate King or we trash King. No. We're here to say both and. We're here to say we experience the pain, so much pain and so much suffering, and we experience joy and abundance and what Quashie calls aliveness. And this is what he says at the conclusion of his book. We are not the idea of us, not even what we hold of us. We are us and varied, becoming, the heterogeneity of us. Blackness in a Black world is everything, which means that it gets to be freed from being any one thing. We are ordinary beauty Black people, and beauty must be allowed to do its beautiful work. To me, this is exactly what it means to do something transformative. It is to do work that is difficult and beautiful, that holds life and death, that longs for, dreams of, and attempts to build a better and more just world. Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me again in thanking Dr. Jean-Charles. So good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Kenan Mackenzie DeFranza, and I am a member of the Planning Committee, but also the director of our Generous Listening and Dialogue Center here at Tufts University. So as part of our programming, we're going to invite you to engage in some dialogue at your tables. We've talked about the topic a little bit earlier, but we want to encourage you to reimagine as we've been invited to do. You'll have about 10 minutes to meet your table mates and share a bit more. And as we've been hearing about, we don't want today to be the last time that we're reimagining together. We want to invite more of these conversations and transformations. So at the end of our time, I'll come back to remind us to reconvene for the rest of our programming. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating, for sharing, being vulnerable with each other. Sometimes folks you knew and didn't know. So I appreciate your participation in this part of the work, and we want to emphasize that this is only the beginning of this thinking about reimagining today, if this is something that you have not felt like you've taken action towards. Now with that, I would like to invite my colleague, Montez Pichal, to come to the podium for the next part of our program.
They gave me some speaking lines, y'all. I got to make sure I get it right. All right. So in the tradition of celebrating, I'm really grateful. Again, I'm Montez Paschal. I use the He series. I'm the Associate Director of the Africana Center. I also graduated from Tufts in 2011. Really happy to be here. Part of my job is getting to support some really incredible students, a lot of whom are in this room right now. And it's a real privilege because I get to watch them grow and flourish and find their voices and find who they want to be. And I have a really distinct privilege of getting to introduce one of our next artists, as she has been a very powerful voice within the Afrikaans community and done a lot of really great work for us. Marsha Germain is a sophomore, double majoring in biopsychology and civic studies on the pre-law track. Marsha, the artist, the poet, is the president of the spoken word at Tufts, also known as SWAT, an underground poetry collective on campus. Since arriving on campus, Marsha has been working to revitalize art and expression on campus following the interruption of COVID-19 to campus life. Here to perform her winning poem, Little Black Woman, please help me welcome Marsha Germain to the stage while she shares her art.
Hello, everybody. Hold on. Okay. Hello. My name is Marsha, and I will be presenting a piece that I wrote called Little Black Women. Is there a way I can raise this? Oh, got it. This is a piece that I wrote in honor of all of the Black women that have transformed our community and have been the foundation of it. And with that said, I do not believe in coincidence, but I believe that our keynote speaker here has reflected my passions that I've expressed in this poem so eloquently and so beautifully, and I am honored to have been able to share the stage after her. And oh, I love an Haitian. But I hope you guys all love and appreciate this piece, and I am so honored to be here in front of all of you. This is called Little Black Woman. I was 16 years old when I first heard about the passing of Ahmaud Arbery. 16 years old when I learned of how he died, the crimes committed against him, the crimes committed against people like him, against people like me, against people like us. I was 5 years old when I became a Black woman in America. Before that, I was simply a little girl in Haiti. A little girl in Haiti becomes a Black woman in America because Blackness in America is synonymous with grown, with fear, with heartache, and with strength that I just didn't have, strength that a little girl shouldn't need to have. I was 6 years old when I understood that I was a Black woman in America. When I realized that I was different, unwanted, I couldn't yet comprehend the complexities and layers hidden behind their stares, their taunts, and their doubts, a blemish in the crowd of little white girls and little white boys in a sea of porcelain. I stuck out like black ink soiling polished parchment. I was 7 years old when I realized that my brother at 13 was a Black man in America. I realized it when that little black man came home for the first time with his pants low, his hoodie up, his skin darkened, with his parents frightened. I didn't understand why, but I knew I should be frightened too. And so I carried that fear. It rotted in me, lodged in my throat like a poisoned apple. It pushed down on my head, drowning me, suffocating me. It clipped my wings, stripped me of my feathers, my essence, my crown like a caged bird. I cried like a little girl, but I screamed like a black woman. But the cries of the black woman fall on deaf ears, and I didn't understand that yet, but I felt it. I was 16 years old. I was 16 years old when I finally understood what it meant to be a black woman in America. I was 16 years old when I finally accepted that I was a black woman in America, when I understood that I couldn't get out of this cage, out of this black skin. I was 16 years old when I learned that I couldn't handle being a black woman in America. I wasn't strong. I wasn't a protector. I wasn't a revolutionary. I wasn't okay. I was 16. I was just a little girl. But I understood that I had to be, because I finally understood that that's what it meant. To be a black woman in America is to be on the front lines of a fight that even in victory you'll never win. It's the responsibility of being the foundation of the same society that cast us out. It's watching the little white boys and the little white girls never even know the word fear, never know the word grown. It's being reminded every day that you are undesirable by even our own black men in America. It's to be hurt by them, never knowing why. Maybe it's because we remind them too much of themselves, too much of their mothers and wives, same skin, same hair, same teeth, same will of the women that have defined our culture, defined them for centuries, same blood that spills on the street when they call us to protect them. But in the moonless night and the sunless day, I guess we're just too dark to be seen, to be respected and loved, and we fade into the background where all the other black women go to cheer them on anyways. To be a black woman in America is to be an unwilling soldier, forgotten but nonetheless the backbone of every movement, of every success, and of every great black man that has ever existed. To be art in every sense of the word, a happy black woman is defiance of the system in its purest form. To be justice itself. We are justice itself. So why, in the pursuit of justice, do we forget about our black women? Why, in the pursuit of justice, do we not protect our black women, love and want and care for our black women, to show love? In the pursuit of justice is to show love to the black woman, to adore the black woman and to uplift the black woman, to foster creativity. In the pursuit of justice is to appreciate the innate beauty of the black woman, to nurture it, to allow it to flourish. We must fan the flames of the black woman so that she may not sink into the darkness, but illuminate it instead. Today, I am a 19-year-old black woman, and I'm still scared, and I still cry. But now I cry in chorus with all of the other black women, those of us that were just born, those of us that are just now understanding, and those of us that have suffered in silence for longer than anyone ever should. And for my fellow soldiers, for my sisters and mothers and aunts, for our grandmothers and great-grandmothers, and for the black women whose names have been forgotten at the front lines of justice, I see you. Rest easy, for your cries can now fall on my ears. I'll listen, and I'll take them to heart. Transform it for us, carve it into stone for us, make it shiny and pretty and beautiful. I promise I'll make evident our beauty, make us into art, and above all, I'll love you. In the pursuit of love and justice, black woman in America, black little girl, I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much.
Can you get one more round of applause for Martial? I'm back. So now we're going to move into the next portion of our program. Just to build off of what Dr. Kenan was talking about before, the table talk discussions, while those are short conversation, we invite you to continue those conversations. Those questions are on the table. You are free to record them and utilize those in conversations outside of this space and actually bring that message elsewhere. Continue to interrogate what's going on and how we get to the next phase. So while we're at that point, I would like to invite Dr. Jean Charles back to the stage so that we can move into the next phase, which is the question and answer part. And I believe Nora will be walking around with the microphone, so we'll start taking questions from the crowd, and we invite you to, again, just engage in the dialogue and continue that conversation.
Or we could have Marsha come and do another poem now. Is it, are the people who are in the live stream, are they also able to ask questions? Or?
Not tonight, no.
So I can get us started.
Oh, thank you.
Just in case. Maybe I can get the juices flowing here. So the first question, just to get us going, what role does faith play in your activist work, and what is the significance of the Good Samaritan motif for you?
This is so good because this is actually a part that I was going to read that I took out. So I am very much a person of faith. I was raised in a household, so I was raised Catholic. And my parents were always very clear about the role of Catholicism. They had the role of social justice in their faith. And even though I no longer attend Catholic Church, I always think about this kind of foundation. And I started my career as a professor at a Jesuit university, which totally delighted my parents. And so this idea of, I actually didn't, you know, one thing I did appreciate about the Jesuits is that same idea about faith and social justice. And so as I was starting out my academic career, it was actually really refreshing to be at an institution where there was no kind of dichotomy between being an academic or an intellectual and being a person of faith, which I cannot say was the same of my beloved graduate school, Harvard University, which I attended. And so I think that, you know, the call, I think that for no matter what your faith is, that the call to something greater, the call to imagine the world as it should be, is one that animates so many, right, of our justice movements. And so I think that for me, that is really, it plays a central role. It plays a very important role. I'm also committed to the idea of a faith that does justice. I am currently part of a congregation that has a long way to go when it comes to really understanding why and how to live in a way that always has a faith with justice at the center. And so that's also the work that I feel called to do for people, particularly for Christians who don't understand that. And I think in the current climate that we live in, where so much of Christianity has been co-opted by the extreme right, progressive voices who are people of faith, who are centering justice, are so important to hear.
Thank you. can I just say one thing about the Good Samaritan? Okay. So there's a passage, because I was going to read about this tonight, but I didn't
So in one of his speeches, Martin Luther King uses the example of the story of the Good Samaritan. And he says that, so this is the story about a man who was left for dead on the side of the road, and 3 people walk by him, and the only person that stops for him is the Samaritan. And the Samaritan is called such because they are a foreigner, right? And so usually you would expect that this person would not have helped the man, but he's the only one, as opposed to people who are more proximate to the man, right? Who are more in community with him. And I have a friend actually that always points out that the story is actually called The Samaritan, but that we have turned it into The Good Samaritan, which is a fascinating point. But what King says is, everybody who walks by the man on the road asks themselves, if I stop for this person, what will happen to me? I think we're all guilty of this, right? I've also, I'm like, oh, I can't stop and help this person because I gotta go. Like, I'm gonna be late for this meeting, or I see this student crying, but I have to go. Like, I'm meeting with the dean. But the Samaritan asks, if I don't stop to help this person, what will happen to them, right? And so it's thinking about, what are we centering when we think about our work? And I think it's also really important, but I would even extend it even further, because I think that part of what's important is also centering the lives and experience of those who are themselves in that positionality, right? So whether it's thinking about survivor-centered justice, or whether it's thinking about, in the Black Lives Matter movement, right? The people that are, Ayanna Pressley always says, the people who are closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And so while I love that analogy, I think my thinking, I always, and this happens to me a lot, where I'm like, oh, I want it to go a little bit further in terms of how it could be useful to us in our contemporary social justice movements.
Thank you. I think there was a question in the back. Oh, we have one.
Hi, Dr. Jean-Charles. I am a Haitian immigrant, and I appreciate everything that you have been saying. I'm curious if you can share with us, how does your Haitian identity appear in your work? How does it influence your work?
Oh, it's everywhere. You should read. I have a book that just came out called Looking for Other Worlds, Black Feminism and Haitian Fiction. And so it's actually about 3 contemporary Haitian feminist writers, Evelyne Trouillot, Ketli Mouse, and Yannick Lanz. For many years, I was in a French department in addition to being in an Africana Studies department, and I had the great pleasure of teaching novels written in French by Haitians, so from the classics like Marie Chauvet and Jacques Roumain through contemporary people like Gary Victor, Dany Laferrière, Ketli Mouse, etc. And so in terms of, intellectually, that's really my intellectual home and community. One of those communities is the Haitian Studies community, it's an interdisciplinary field. I have, some of my dear friends who are historians who are working on Haiti, sociologists working on Haiti. And I think also my parents instilled in me a love of education and a love of learning. And so I actually came to study Haiti as a profession that was acceptable to my parents, right? So even though I didn't become a doctor, so often in the Haitian community, it's like you can be a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. These are the 3 acceptable careers. I did not become any of these. I became a professor, right? I got a PhD, and I would always joke that my father would say, oh, this is my daughter, the doctor. She's at Harvard. And it's true, I was doing a doctorate, and people would say, what kind of medicine do you practice? When I would go to Haiti and visit my parents. And I'd be like, no, Juris Doctor. Doctor of philosophy. But I do think that a combination of this love of learning and a love of my culture, right? Even though I'm first generation, I was not born in Haiti, but my parents were very, very clear that we are Haitian. And so from languages spoken in the home to being taught the stories of the Haitian Revolution and taught the stories of Haitian history. But then I started, as I got older, I wanted to know Haiti on my own terms. And so, my parents didn't teach me about Haitian feminism. My parents didn't, I know so much about Vodou now. My parents didn't teach me that. So it was really developing as a scholar and getting that maturity to move away from the Haiti that I had been shown to discovering it for myself through my own experiential knowledge. Thank you.
She's coming up.
Thank you. Hello, Dr. Jean-Charles. My name is Valencia Kumsin. I'm a professor here at Tufts. And Regina is a very good, dear friend of mine, so it's a pleasure to be here this evening. I had a question about, I wanted to hear your thoughts on this one concept. I mean, when we see incidents that happen, like police shootings, sometimes people tend to say that, well, that's an issue that's related to the black community. They don't see themselves, they don't feel the same sense of empathy. And we talk a lot about diversity and beauty and diversity and how we are a nation of many different cultures, many different peoples. But I think about what the scripture and what Jesus talked about, loving thy neighbor as thyself, and seeing that sameness. And how can we create an environment where when people see an incident happen, like what happened a few days ago, that they see something there that they connect to. And I just say that's an issue for the black community. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
That's a great question, Dr. Valencia. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I don't know, is the short answer. We were talking about this at our table, right? And it was Kenan that actually said that she heard a sermon this weekend, and that the pastor said from the pulpit, you know, we keep saying, oh, if it was my son, right? Don't correct me if I'm messing up the words. But guess what? That is your son. So what does it mean for us to look at Tyre Nichols as though he is our son? Not because, oh, I have a son, right, who's tall and this and that. No, not because it actually reminds me of my biological child, but because I feel to that degree that that is my child. I really do believe, and this is where maybe you and I are different as professors, that literature and art are a great pathway for people to understand, to get that sense of empathy. I can see the transformations from my students who will read Toni Morrison and their eyes are open to an experience that perhaps they never thought about before, and they realize and they see the sameness, right? So when you read Toni Morrison and when he says, you know, oh, she's a friend of my mind, the pieces I am, she puts them back together, that can resonate with anyone who knows what it's like to be in love or wants to be in love. And so I really think that this is the power of the liberal arts education and the power of the humanities, right? To be able to allow people to experience that sameness, to access that sameness. And then I think the goal is always to activate them and to keep it going. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
I hope it's a follow-up. So I am a native Bostonian. I'm born and raised in Boston. And one of the things that came to mind just now was the idea that, you know, there's this dissociation, and especially like in a place like Boston where we don't necessarily see outwardly the same types of actions, although we just experienced Cambridge. En masse, you don't really see the viral videos in Dorchester and Mattapan of these types of acts, especially between police and communities of color. But my question is, in those moments, what is it that helps folks kind of build that coalition to be able to understand that, like you said, like that's my son, like that could also be my community, right? That's my community. Because I also think about erasure in Boston and the fact that there are a lot of folks who are not from the area who don't believe black people exist there, and I can promise you we do. But I just think about that in terms of the disassociation.
So the question is, how do you build community, or how do you build a coalition around?
I guess around some of the
How do you mobilize people in the absence of the video, or?
In the seeming absence of community. Like the community exists, but if folks don't recognize it.
But like, who are folks, right? Like, honestly, I feel like I know so many, you know, I work at Northeastern now, and it has been an awakening for me in terms of, first of all, I didn't know much about the history of Northeastern's relationship to the city of Roxbury and what some of those challenges were. And I also am doing things that I haven't done before, right, as a professor. I had my students, I teach a class called Black Feminisms, and my students, Black Feminist Studies, and this fall they had a service learning component is what it's called, terms that I question, but basically a community engaged model of teaching. And the students were paired with 3 Black women-led organizations in Boston. So one was AFAB in Dorchester, the Haitian Women's Association. One was the League of Women for Community Service, which is right there in Roxbury, like literally right around the corner from them. I think they call it the South End, but we know it's Roxbury. And then there's also, and then the third one was Sitters for Scholars, which is in JP, run by an amazing Black woman who, they're an organization that pairs single mothers with childcare when they want to go pursue their education so that they can pursue education. Fabulous organization. Sorry this is taking so long to answer, but what I'm saying is that some of those students had never heard of those organizations. Some of those students didn't know what the richness that was existing. We had a group, their first assignment was to show up in Franklin Park and help Sitters for Scholars with this event that they put on in the park for all the members of the community members. And they were like, I've never been to Franklin Park. Like, oh my gosh, look at all these people, look at all these things, And so sometimes just by facilitating an encounter, that can open up so much for people. And also, I feel like, the Boston activists, like people are doing the work. Just because they're not recognized or seen or these narratives, I feel like people are building. I mean, this is what I love about the Embrace, the fact that it has the names of all of these activists around, around the statue, that those histories are being made and it's happening. And I think what we can think about for the next generation also is archiving that work, right? And so how can we, because I'm always thinking, especially as a department chair of Africana Studies in Roxbury, how do we leverage what we have, the tools that we have at the university to tell those stories? I have a colleague that's working on collecting oral histories. We got this grant from the Mellon Foundation, and so it's like tools for the community archivist, right? So how do we make sure those stories are captured and amplified, right? And then disseminated for people to see. So I think years from now, the way that when you and I know when I went to college, people were like, you're from Boston, there are no Black people there. And I was like, I'm Haitian. There are so many Haitians in Boston. Right. But I imagine that I think that story, by the time our children or grandchildren are going to college, I do think it will be different.
I'm hoping
Such
so.
a long answer, I'm sorry.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Oh, there's a question back there.
Oh, we got one back there. And then
Oh, yeah. She needs a mic. Thank you so much, Nora, for all of your work.
Nora, I
You're
hope
getting
you got a
lots of
Fitbit.
steps. I know. I hope you have on a.
Hi, I'm Wendy Miller Olapade. I'm a pastor here in Medford and a great appreciator of Tufts, and I'm so glad to have been able to hear you this evening. And I'm curious about what your table had to say about the third question, and you're wondering what if care, compassion, love, connection, circles was at the forefront of how we live with each other, be with each other, look at each other. I'd love to hear you.
You were asking me to disclose what the president and the provost of Tufts University.
Totally, I totally
had
do.
to say without
No,
their
you don't-
permission.
Well, speak for yourself.
Did we get to that question? I don't think we did. We didn't get to that question. Honestly, we had a heavy a tone at our table, right? I think we shared very transparently about the challenges that we've had, particularly, those of us who are Black on college campuses and what it feels like to be interacting with students in this moment right now. But the question is about care, compassion, circles. Can you remind me of what the question is again so I can? So, I think in the both and so I think that you can do both. I think that you can be in the circle or community of care and think about, it's important to talk about white supremacy and capitalism and rape culture and all of those difficult things. I think that I actually, in something that did come up at our table is I was saying how Angela Davis, when asked how she, who is like pushing 80 almost, has managed to have such longevity as an activist, right? When we know there's so much burnout for activists. And she says that it has been in community and in coalition that she finds reservoirs of hope. And I love that expression of the reservoir of hope. I think it's so rich, right? As we think about water as healing, as replenishing, as, you know, I think even of that like scripture, like out of your belly will come streams of living water. And so you're replenished by being in that community. But it doesn't mean that you don't tackle the hard things. It doesn't mean you don't say heteropatriarchy. I mean, this is how Black feminist activism also has lots of, and feminist organizing in general, a lot of it starts with these kinds of reading groups, right? AFAB, the Haitian women's organization I just mentioned, they started out as a reading group. They were reading Bell Hooks, they were reading Toni Morrison, and then they decided to, the women kept coming to them and talking about the domestic violence that was happening in the community, and then they formed a safe house for Haitian undocumented women who were survivors of domestic violence, and since then the work has grown and grown and grown and grown.
Yeah, one more question? Yep, sounds like we got one.
Oh,
Hi,
hello.
good evening.
Good evening.
So
What's your name?
I'm a Tufts graduate, and
This is my husband.
I'm trying to stay on the cover, but I'm trying to be on the cover here. You talked about the liberal arts education being key to people engaging in some of these topics. But for many of us who are in the Tufts, a very science-heavy school, you don't get a lot of those classes. Tufts is a school that has a rich legacy, and when I was here, along with Mr. Herzad, we engaged. I learned about the Black community in West Medford. Dr. Badi Foster, may he rest in peace, was here in the center, and we engaged. We were engaging kids from the community, and so I came to a university and was told that Boston is not safe for me necessarily. I should stay out of the north and I stay out of the south, and with specificity, what neighborhoods I should not be in. And I came and I engaged a Black community in West Medford, and I engaged, you know, these things and that things, and the African American Trail, and so that was such an enriching experience. And the legacy, Tufts' first Black graduate, I think, was around 1909 or so. So what I want to challenge you to help us is, how can a university like this build on its legacy? How can you have an experience where you come to a university and do more than just the classroom? And I know you talked about your eyes being awakened at Northeastern with this engagement with Roxbury. What ideas do you have for a school like Tufts that has a rich legacy to build upon?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Thank you, sweetheart. Do you want me to answer that now or on the ride home? No, just kidding. Sorry. Okay, so I think my friend Kendra Field is not here, but Kendra is a historian and a professor who works in African American history, who actually, they are doing work with this museum in Medford, and I was so impressed to hear about that work. So I would say the first thing would be for the students to go and take a class with Dr. Kendra Field. And Dr. Carrie Greenridge also, that they do have. Carrie Greenridge actually works on the history of Black New England also. And so they do have some riches here. I think also, you said more than just take a class, but I actually think the class should be required for everyone. I believe, I'm not into the DEI trainings. I don't think they work. Sorry. I think that a required class for every student across the university that is like, you know, a race, like an actual class, right? So you know, it could be even, I mean, I'm thinking about, of course, Lorja Garcia Peña, who's someone else I adore, an ethnic studies model where they're learning about the linked oppressions between different groups. I think that will go a lot further than trainings that are just a one-off, especially those online trainings where the students aren't really, okay, some students, I should say, not all of them, are not really paying attention to that. I think that required class, and I say this based out of my own experience for the class that I taught for first-year students at Boston College, which was called Where #Black Lives Matter meets #MeToo. And my friend who's a sociologist, Dr. Sean McGuffey, we taught that class together, and it was all about racial justice and gender-based violence, right? The intersection of those two, racial violence and sexual violence. And those students were transformed. The campus was different because the students came out of that class, they were activists, they wanted to volunteer at the Rape Crisis Center, they wanted to work at the Women's Center, they were doing so much. It was also a community engaged course. They worked with the Movement for Black Lives in Boston, they worked with the Boston Area Rape Crisis Center, and so because they had that experience, as first-year students, the trajectory of their college career was different and they were choosing to do something transformative as a result. And so I know that it works. If it can work at Boston College, I'm like, it can work anywhere. So this is what I say. If I had my own university, I would have a required class, especially for first-year students, so that you're creating cohorts. And it would be a community-engaged class that has them doing those things that you mentioned, Ohne, and even more, right? And not this, coming alongside the activists to learn. No, sorry, not that. And it's not going to be this like kind of missional thing, right? But it's actually you coming alongside the organizations to learn from them and what's their model of change, right? How are they strategizing? How are they organizing? And I think students could really, really learn so much from that and change their campuses for the better and the world. My imaginary
So to say thank you, Dr. Jean-Charles. We appreciate you and appreciate you answering our questions and spending some time with us. And I think we are going to move to our next segment. But just another round of applause for Dr. Johnson.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This is my last line, Joel, so I'm going to do this right. Now, as we near the end of our program, I would like to welcome my colleague, Precious Musa, the Africana Center Program Coordinator, to the stage to leave us with some closing words.
Good evening. And what a good evening it has been. Please join me in another round of applause for our Student Voices winners. Each student has a very special place in my heart, so it was especially joyous to watch you three shine tonight. Thank you. And our musical selection was supreme, and our keynote reminded us of the love work necessary to achieve our human duty to each other. Thank you all for a memorable evening. I also wish to thank the MLK Planning Committee for the work you all have done to curate a fantastic evening. And on behalf of the Planning Committee, I'd like to extend gratitude to our sponsors, without whom this event may not have happened. Thank you. Tonight's program was designed to motivate you to take the necessary steps towards affecting change within your community, within your beloved community. But tonight should not be the beginning and end of your action steps. When you leave here, leave with a commitment that honors King's legacy. Whether that's hosting uncomfortable conversations among your peers, or joining us this Saturday, February 4th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the MLK Day of Community Action. More details for the Day of Action can be found on the sheets on your tables. It's going to be an impactful day filled with workshops and opportunities to engage in direct action with the local Boston community. Whatever you choose to do, show up ready to work. I, of course, have to mention the recently unveiled MLK Memorial sitting in Freedom Plaza. The embrace features a hug between the kings and seeks to, quote, remind viewers of our shared humanity, end quote. We encourage you to head into Boston to see it, maybe take the new Green Line. And lastly, we're providing shuttle rides back to the Africana Center, so if you need a ride, stick around. And also, we have Dr. Jean-Charles' book on sale at the entrance, so please grab a copy. It's a wonderful book, it's a transformative book, and you will be changed after reading it. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful night.